So I'm Sherry Finzer. I'm a flutist, composer, recording artist. I have a record label called Heart Dance Records, which, is anybody familiar with Windham Hill, the Windham Hill label? I'm trying to build a new Windham Hill label. That's my goal. So the artists on the label fit into the category of new age, contemporary, instrumental. But I'm here today to talk about the healing power of music and some of the experiences I've had, as well as with guitarist Darin Mahoney. So I've been married for 33 years to my wonderful husband, Chuck, who's also in the back of the room. Chuck's in the middle. To the left is our eldest son, Nick, our younger son, Tyler, who is 6'9½". So I'm actually the shortest one in the family. And then I'm also a grandmother, and there's my two grandchildren, Rex and Leo. I come from Rochester, New York, not too far from where my good friend Elena hails from. my background, I'm a classically trained flutist, and my teacher studied with Jean-Pierre Rampal, so she passed those training skills down to me. I also played a little bit of piano when I was a kid, but really fell in love with the flute. So in 2005, I moved out here with my husband and son Tyler. Nick stayed back to go to school at Eastman in Rochester, and moved out here. I tried to get involved with some of the orchestras, the community orchestras, but usually once you have a position in an orchestra, you remain there until you leave at some point. So part of my journey was to reinvent myself. I've been teaching since I arrived here, so that's a picture of me with one of my students at a recital. I've done performances with many other famous flutists. That's Gary Shocker on the bottom. The bottom picture in the middle, I did some work with a harpist. We played for weddings, but then we wanted to experiment and do some music outside the classical genre, so we started a group called Dulce Voz. That's up in the top right corner. That became a Latin jazz group. The top center picture, I was performing with a flamenco guitarist, so I got more involved with world music at that time. And this picture here, with all the different flutes, that is a flute choir that I've performed with in the Phoenix area. And you can see many different size flutes. In that picture, I have 3 with me here today, which you'll get to hear. My newest one is a contrabass that you can see, the one that looks like a big number 4. I have one of those, but I did not bring that one today. I did a performance, a benefit concert, and there was a woman there that bought this particular CD, Desert Journey. So she came into my class one day and told me that she had a problem where her hands were shaking. I don't know if she had Parkinson's or some other disease, but her hands would shake constantly. And she found that if she put this album on, this music of mine, in the background, that it controlled her shaking, that she was able to write and put her makeup on. So I thought, wow, that's pretty powerful, that music can move somebody in that way and can benefit people. Back with this flamenco guitarist, I met this guy, John Herrera. John Herrera has a studio in Chandler, Arizona. I had talked to him at this particular show about my idea to try to do healing music or New Age music. So John said, I can help you with that. So went to his studio, and I recorded my first New Age CD, Sanctuary. I used the C flute, concert seat flute, and Native American flute and the alto flute, and I should probably explain the different flutes for you too. So it was an experimentation. And then 2 years later, that first, the Sanctuary album was in 2009. 2 years later, my friend Gary Kiggins invited me up to Greer, Arizona. I ended up playing on stage with this guy, Darin Mahoney, who's here with me today. I was invited up to play a couple songs on his set with another artist that you see there in the picture. After the show, we exchanged business cards. He liked what he heard. I liked what I heard, what he was doing with his guitar. And I was working on my next New Age album, Sanctuary 2. I invited Darin into the studio to record with me on that. He recorded on 2 tracks, and that's the Sanctuary 2 album. So we liked what we created so much that we decided to do a full-length album together. That album is all original music that Darin composed and myself. I want to talk a little bit about the style of music that Darin and I do. The style, the music that was written by Darin when I first heard Darin playing his solo music from his album In the Grain. This is where I get to share the story about Darin. After I had worked with him a little bit, I learned of his story. He had stage 4 cancer, liver and pancreas cancer, 20 years ago now, is that right? It's been 20 years. They were getting ready to check him into hospice, and a doctor came into the room and had a new experimental chemo. and asked Darin if he wanted to try it. So, of course, he said yes. And it was so invasive on his body that they needed to put him into a coma. So while he was in this coma, his parents were playing the music of Will Ackerman, who, if you're familiar with the Windham Hill label, you know who Will Ackerman is. He started the label. He's a wonderful guitarist. When Darin came out of the coma, he wanted to know whose music that was. So that's when he learned about Will Ackerman. And after his cancer was in remission, he picked up his guitar again, started playing, started writing music in the manner of Will Ackerman, the same style of music. So when I heard this story and I heard Darin's music, I said, we need to do something together. We need to do something with us. His intention with the music was to help those going through some type of illness, be it mental illness, physical illness. And I was going along that same journey. I wanted my music to help in that same manner. So there's us in the recording studio. The big white flute, by the way, is my bass flute. She has a name, it's Snow White. So as I mentioned, our intent with our music is to connect with people who need it to heal in some fashion. We'll play so many shows together, and people will come up to us afterwards and say, oh my gosh, I have a friend that's going through chemo, and your music would be so perfect. And we get goosebumps when we hear that, because we know that that music is going to those people that need it. That was our whole intention with doing this, was connecting through our music.